Okay, hello. My name is Kristen Orr. I am a paralegal with the Center for Elder Law and Justice. I'm here with Supervising Attorney Sarah Duval, also at the Center for Elder Law and Justice. So we have a presentation for you. The Better Business Bureau and the FTC recently came out with some new updated data on scams for 2021. So we're just going to run through that new data and what you can do to protect yourself. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, are we good?
Thank you, Kristen. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Kristen, are you going to monitor the chat? Okay. I think we should be able to answer them if you have any questions or observations. And we just want to thank the Erie County COVID-19 Scams Task Force. As we're going to learn today, one of the many impacts of COVID-19 has been a significant spike in scam activity and individuals falling victim to scam. One of the, I don't want to say silver linings, but is that we believe that, a lot more scams are being reported. So that's what we're going to go over the data today and just what kind of scams are out there, what's been reported. And then, like Kristen said, just some tips to protect yourself or your loved ones. So I think we can move to the disclaimer.
Okay.
And just quickly, it's just not information is for informational purposes only, does not constitute legal advice, and does not form any attorney-client relationship between you and us here at the Center for Elder Law and Justice. But should you require legal assistance, we will be providing contact information. You can always reach out to our office to see if you have legal questions and you qualify for our services.
Okay, so we put this presentation together, like I stated, through information recently released by the FTC and the Better Business Bureau. So who are these agencies? The Federal Trade Commission, as noted in its title, is a federal agency. Their mission is to investigate, prevent, and protect consumers from deceptive, unfair business practices, scams, fraud. They enforce consumer protection laws. They educate consumers. And they also have what's called their Consumer Sentinel Network, which is a program where they take reports from consumers, from law enforcement, from nonprofit agencies, different states around the country, and use that data to compile the reports that we use in our work today. The Better Business Bureau is a private nonprofit organization. They provide information and education to consumers and assist with resolving disputes between customers and companies. If you are alleging fraud or want a refund or contract dispute, you can reach out to the Better Business Bureau for assistance with that.
Scams. So by the numbers, this is from the FTC data, but consumers reported fraud losses of $5.8 billion in 2021. That's an increase of over 70% from 2020. That's a huge spike in fraud losses. We are going to get into what kind of losses we saw. There's certainly imposter scams, there's identity theft. We're going to get into that later, but overall, $5.8 billion. There are also 5.7 million reports made in 2021. Over 2.8 million consumers reported fraud, and 1.4 million consumers reported identity theft. And in addition to the increase in reports, and there's Median dollar loss rose 47% from $115 average loss in 2020 to $169 in 2021. And we're going to go through, we also have stats that break that down by age, average loss by age group. And just really quickly about the FTC, we are one of the reporting partners. So the CLJ has its own portal. So if you believe yourself or someone else may fall victim to a scam, please don't hesitate to reach out, because this data is what raises awareness about scams, and it's really effective in fighting scams, that people realize this really is an issue. But the FTC can't report on what they don't hear about. So the next slide is just a map that shows this is overall in the United States from the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2021, so a 2-year period. And you can see these reports by type, almost 300,000 fraud reports, 200,000 identity theft reports. We can get into the other categories that includes credit bureaus and credit cards, and then do not call list. And so in this 2-year period, again, 676,000 reports, and the fraud loss of 675.98 million, median fraud loss of $400. And that's just the fraud, not the identity theft. The fraud reports indicate a loss. About almost half of fraud reports indicate that somebody did lose money. And then that top right time period, it's trend over time. So you can see there are certain spikes. Like in April of 2021, there's a spike, and then in August, there's a little spike, and it is trending. Reports are trending downward now, just overall. And then I think Kristen's going to talk a little bit about scams. So that's our national view, but we have some information just on New York State.
Right. So in New York State, fraud and identity theft are the highest reported, in addition to those other categories Sarah mentioned, like credit bureau issues, credit cards, mortgage scams. But identity theft is certainly being reported in high numbers as well. So here we have just New York from the data that Sarah mentioned. So over 60,000 reports just for New York State. Actually in New York State, over 50% of fraud reports indicate a loss, whereas nationwide that was slightly under 50%. The top reports include online shopping. That could be thinking you're purchasing an item and it never shows up, or it comes significantly damaged, delayed, much lower quality. That could also be from like Facebook ad scams or social media in general, where you think that you're purchasing something that you see on social media and then that item never comes. And again, vacation and travel, that could be thinking you're purchasing a timeshare or a travel package. So in New York State, those were the top reports there. Median fraud loss slightly under $400 at $392. And then identity theft, we can see a large spike in the beginning of 2021. So that would be almost a year after the pandemic. It sort of drops back down in June 2021, then back up, and also trending down currently as well. But certainly a significant spike in the beginning of 2021 for identity theft reports. And then we have other, and significant rise right around the start of COVID, between December 2019 and June 2020. There was a significant rise, and then slightly trending downward, but a lot of little spikes in there as well, with issues with credit bureaus, credit cards, banks, credit unions. So that could be fraudulent charges on your credit card, losing your credit card information. We always encourage people to very closely review their credit card and bank statements every month. The earlier that you detect suspicious activity and can dispute it, the better chance you have of getting your money back.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Whereas New York had a higher number of identity theft reports, whereas nationwide there were a higher number of fraud reports. So New York is reporting slightly higher identity theft than a nationwide average. So the top reported fraud categories. Now this is just categories of fraud. So this is really everything except for identity theft and then other scams. These are imposter scams. $2.3 billion in losses, up from $1.2 billion in 2020. So that's, nearly a 200% increase, twice the number of imposter scams. Online shopping scams, like Kristen mentioned, a high number of those in New York State, 392 million in losses, up from 246 million in 2020. A lot more online shopping, a lot more opportunities. I'm not sure if you've ever been browsing, Facebook or Instagram, and then there's an ad that says, just pay shipping and we'll send you this, or it's deeply, deeply discounted because my business is going out of business and I can't sell this. Those are pretty easy to fall for. Not maybe, earlier days of the social media, once thought I was going to get a free pair of sunglasses if I just paid shipping. So, anyone can fall for these scams. They're really, I know more now, but they're very slick the way that these scammers approach you. Prizes, sweepstakes, and lotteries. Those are the old, kind of tried and true scams where if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Internet services and business and job opportunities. A lot of people are financially stressed during COVID and, saw opportunities maybe just for businesses or jobs, work from home and make a ton of money, those kind of scam advertisements. On the next slide, we can really this is just by, again, the reports. This is for 2020. And then the next slide is going to be 2021. So this is 2020, and you can just see identity theft was the leader in reports. And then it's the next categories combined make up, fraud. So it's imposter scams, online shopping and negative reviews, credit bureaus, info furnishers and report users, banks and lenders, internet services, and then auto related. I get a lot of calls for extended warranty, and your car's extended warranty is almost up. I think everyone gets those calls. Sometimes we have clients who have 4 or 5 extended warranties on a vehicle that really doesn't need an extended warranty. So, fine line between questionable business practice and outright scam. And if you want to go, and again, it just this is the percentage of reports. If you want to go to 2021, Kristen. The biggest here is identity theft, still number 1, but the imposter scams jumped up quite a bit from 2020 to 2021. And we can go into the reasoning for that in the next slide. And what are imposter scams? And then their trends over time. So we'll see that the orange line are government imposters. And you can see they're kind of low, and then they really spike between 2018, 2020, then really spike again 2020 to 2021. So government imposters, that can be, people calling and saying you might qualify for, a COVID relief or a vaccination. Business imposters are definitely on the rise. That really spiked during the pandemic. Friend and family imposters, that's stayed fairly steady. It's risen a little bit, but that's what we consider more kind of your stereotypical elder abuse where you're victimized by a close friend or family member. And then we have romance scams. That is the not the darkest and not the lightest, but the middle blue line. And that's trended upwards. I did want to spend just a little bit of time focusing on that because romance scams, although they don't have the high numbers of reports that these other scams do, we find, I know we did a webinar on it last month, but romance scams to be some of the costliest scams and some of the most concerning scams for our clients because, and we found that they really have risen significantly during the pandemic because people were more isolated, seeking relationships and supports online. And that's where a lot of these romance scams originate.
So then if we get into, the different methods of contact that scammers use, the most common contact method in general would be your phone, a phone call, a text message. Sarah mentioned getting extended car warranty phone calls all the time. I get those. I get calls claiming to be from Amazon. Amazon's actually the #1 most reported business being impersonated as of 2021. So it's easy for scammers to call a lot of phone numbers at once and hope someone picks up. So well, that's the most common contact method in general. The most common methods resulting in actually losing money are all digital. So that would be a website ad. You might think that you're shopping on a legitimate online shopping site and maybe the name of in the browser is misspelled and you're actually on a scam website. Those social media ads where you think you're getting a severely discounted item or a free item for just signing up. Those are generally scams, very common scams on fake ads on social media. And then email as well. Fake emails from companies impersonating other companies like Amazon or Apple, or just phishing emails where someone sends you an email and hopes that you respond to give your information. A lot of times these emails will include links where if you click on the link, either intentionally or just accidentally trying to delete it, you will install maybe malware on your computer or be taken somewhere to where you'll get a virus on your computer. So while they're less common in general, you're more likely to lose money if if a scammer reaches out digitally. So here's just a graph showing that. On the first little box we have here is online, so including websites, social media, email, online classifieds. That makes up almost 57% of all scams reported. However, almost 80% of all scams reported with a monetary loss originated online, whereas phone calls and text messaging are 33.5% of scams reported. However, only 15% with a monetary loss. In-person scams do happen, including someone on the street or postal mail. They do happen, but the reports are much lower than online and phone call.
And what does this mean for older adults? Because it's a population, we're focused on and we serve. What it means is, and actually, Kristen, if you could just skip to the graphic, I'd like to have that up while we go over this, is that you can see that the younger you are, generally, the more likely you are to report being scammed. And generally, the less you're likely to lose. So 19 or under, make up basically from 19 to about 50, the percentage of reporting is right around 60%. All right. But then the median loss is lower. It jumps somewhat from 20 to 29, but it's, it's a little bit lower. And then once you get to 50 plus, the percentage reporting a loss starts to trend downward. So you're at, 54%, 48%, then it really takes a jump when you get to 70, which jumps down to 37% around. Then 80 or over, you're at, rounding up to 33%. But then the median loss jumps significantly, especially from 70, 79 to 80 and older. So what that tells us is that older folks are not reporting nearly as many scams, but they are suffering a higher loss. So again, they're reporting, would we believe, we know that elder abuse is underreported generally, and we believe that these scams are underreported. And that can go to people are afraid or embarrassed, or they don't know really where to report. So that's why we encourage you, if you think you have been scammed or potentially, to always reach out and make a report. You can call our office. You can report right to the FTC. You can report to the Attorney General's. Just make sure you reach out and let an agency know.
So we have talked a lot about the increase in numbers. Numbers are increasing everywhere. And COVID-19 plays a large role in those increases. COVID hit March 2020. We're now past March 2022. It's still around, and it's still affecting us, not just health-wise, but scam-wise and financially. So certainly still seeing the effects of COVID and isolation, an increase in online presence, shopping online to avoid stores, spending more time in general, browsing websites and on social media because you can't go outside or you can't visit, in person with family and friends. So you're keeping up on social media. Just by virtue of increasing your online presence means you're increasing your exposure to scammers. So as we talked about, you're more likely to lose money in an online scam. So it's just something to certainly be aware of. Almost 60% of people report shopping more online, almost 50% report spending more time online in general. Also, a change in employment status. A lot of people were furloughed or laid off or lost their jobs as a result of COVID. Difficulty keeping up with bills. You may find yourself the target of an employment scam. You might think that you are signing up online to be a mystery shopper or some other, package receiver. People looking for actual genuine work and then being scammed out of money, thinking they found a legitimate job. And then those who reported significant financial distress, a large part of that probably due to the loss of a job or the loss of a loved one. So if you report significant financial distress, you're more likely to report losing money than those who did not experience financial distress. So if you're already experiencing, difficulty paying your bills, difficulty with your finances, you are more at risk to then lose even more money to scammers who are preying on your time of need, preying on your need to find money to support yourself. So some things that you can do to protect yourself, if you're at risk of being scammed, you can, like we said, always review your credit card statements and bank statements every month. If you see a transaction, a withdrawal or deposit that you don't recognize, you should immediately dispute it with your financial institution. You can run your credit report. We'll talk more about that on the next slide, but running your credit report is a great way to just make sure that you have a handle on everything that's going on in your name, all your credit cards and loans. Independently verify any claims. So by that we mean, if you get a phone call from someone claiming to be your grandchild asking for cash, verify who that person is. That's a common grandparent scam. if you get a phone call or an email from a government agency alleging that you owe money, a lot of these scams seem urgent, but there's always time to verify who it is that's reaching out to you. Why are they reaching out to you? For example, the IRS should not be emailing you. So why are you getting these emails? You can verify who it is on the other line. And if something's too good to be true, it probably is. So if you get a letter saying you've won $100,000, all you have to do is pay the taxes up front, that's a scam. That's a common lottery scam. So always just being aware of the messages you are receiving.
As we heard, identity theft is especially in New York State, it's one of the most commonly reported scams. And one of the best ways that you can be watch out for identity theft is running your credit report often. Because of the spike in scams, especially identity theft scams during COVID-19, the 3 credit reporting agencies, they're Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, have made it possible for consumers to receive free records of their credit and payment history weekly. Before the pandemic, you were allowed 1 free report per agency per year. So we would advise our clients they could run essentially a report once every 4 months. But now each is offering a free report every week. So there's really, it's there, I guess there's a limit, but it's really, you could run it every week if you wanted. And so we recommend regularly checking your credit report. Now, what it does is show any line of credit in your name, credit cards, mortgages, loans, your address will show up there, phone numbers. If there's an address that you don't recognize and it doesn't belong to anyone else in your family, that can be a potential red flag. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's an issue, but that's something to look for. And this does not show your credit score. So you won't be able to do a credit report and see what your credit score is, but it also doesn't harm your credit score. It's just a tool as a consumer that you can use. And if something looks unfamiliar or makes you have a question, it's something you can follow up on with these credit reporting agencies. And you can do that by visiting annualcreditreport.com to request these credit reports. And we recommend that so long as they're all free weekly, to run it with every reporting agency just to make sure that it's consistent across the board. And through the end of 2022, you can access each report weekly. I want to be clear that this deadline was initially set to expire in April of 2021, but has since been extended and it was then going to expire in April 2022, the weekly free reports, but it was just recently extended again through the end of 2022. Beyond that, it may revert back to 1 free report per year per consumer, but we'll see what happens. And I just recommend that, it's an important thing to do, and it's helpful to keep on top of your information.
So the Better Business Bureau did a survey for people who were targeted by scammers but did not engage or did not end up losing money, and asked what helped you avoid losing your money to scammers. So we just wanted to touch on the commonly reported answers. Almost 75% of respondents felt something wasn't right about the situation. They just had a feeling that the story didn't add up. The person maybe wasn't who they said they were. They looked into it and they were right, and they avoided the scam that way. So like we said, just take a few minutes to really think about what this person is asking you to do. If someone's asking you to pay for a gift card, gift cards are a big red flag for scams. So if something just doesn't seem quite right with this person on the other end of the phone, or the person who's sending you a letter, just take the time to really think and do your own verification of that person. Almost 35% of respondents said that they knew about common methods and behaviors of scammers. So for example, gift cards again, like we said, that's a big red flag. So if you hear someone asking for a gift card, they hang up the phone. Common methods would be a sense of urgency, saying that you need to respond right away. You have 24 hours before we suspend your account. That's not how a legitimate business runs. They're not going to call you and leave threatening messages. So if you do get a phone call like that, that's really common behavior to scammers. 33% researched the scam they were targeted with, maybe a grandparent scam or an IRS imposter scam, and almost 30% researched the scammer's background. So the scammer themselves, if you're getting a call from Joe Smith, researching that person's background, that person's company they're claiming to be from. So the main takeaway from all these answers is just don't respond too quickly. Don't be drawn in by the sense of urgency. Do your own research, check in with a friend. Something doesn't seem right about this. What do you think? You can call our agency and talk it through. So this would be a good step or some steps to take when you're confronted with a message or a letter or a request, before you send that check or send your information, to just think twice. The Better Business Bureau has a scam tracker where you can report scams, whether or not you lost money. And what's interesting about their scam tracker is that they're tracked by zip codes. So if you go to this website, you can look and see the scams that are actually happening in your area as they're reported. So you can see, we're in Western New York, what are Western New Yorkers experiencing and what are they facing, compared to the rest of the country.
Some steps you can take, be responsive. If you can always dispute charges with your financial institution if something shows up on your credit card or on your debit card. You immediately dispute it. You can file a police report. This can happen to anybody, unfortunately, and so make sure you file a police report if something shows up that's unrecognized, and let your financial institution know right away. Change your passwords, change your PIN if you're concerned it's been compromised, and don't share your PIN with anybody. And sometimes, unfortunately, you might change your account numbers if you think that a scammer may have gotten hold of an account. Again, we talked about credit reports already, running those. Consider a credit freeze or a fraud alert if you believe that your identity may be compromised. And then file complaints, again, with regulatory agencies and law enforcement, just to document what had happened. And again, let the FTC know and law enforcement know. The more complaints, the more records of the scams out there, the more likely that these scammers are going to be caught. And again, in the event that this happens, it's important to know there is a process to recover international wire transfers, but it's only if there's $50,000 or more that happened in the last 72 hours originating from U.S. bank accounts. But if you report it, if something happens and then you pause and think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I did that. As Kristen's mentioned throughout this presentation, these scammers try to catch you off balance. They try and get you when you're vulnerable. And so it's easier, they prey on your emotion, not your rational mind, but your emotional mind. So if something happens and you react emotionally, and then, 5 or 10 hours later, you're like, oh my gosh, I think I just might have been victim to a scam and it was over $50,000. Report it immediately to the FBI and your bank, and whoever, CellJ can assist, but report, because there's a chance that when the transaction is reported within 48 to 72 hours that you can get your money, that wire can be stopped. And then just a few resources at the end. We have the CELJ operates a free senior legal advice helpline for New Yorkers. The number is 1-844-481-0973. We have a live helpline from 9 to 11. So if you call between those 2 hours, you should be connected directly with an attorney. Outside of those hours, if you leave a message, you will get a call back. And then you can also email our helpline with your name and phone number. And then a licensed attorney, we strive to respond to you within a business day. We can also, if you live in Erie County and you want to, or beyond Erie County, really we serve all of Western New York and the Southern Tier. If you want to go to the next slide, Kristen, you can contact us at 853-3087 to do a full intake. And again, if you call that number, we are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We have a website. We have an email. And we have 3 offices. Our main office here in Buffalo. We have an office in Chautauqua and Dunkirk. And we have an office in Niagara County in Lockport. We have a large staff. We have people dedicated just to helping victims of scams and providing outreach about scam awareness and prevention. And that's it for me, Kristen. I don't have anything else you want to add?
No, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'll just say, if you do fall victim to a scam or you're not sure, you get a phone call you're not sure about, you can always call us. It can be very confusing. It can be overwhelming. Scammers are very convincing. It's their full-time job is to convince you to give them your money. So it's frustrating but it's true. So never hesitate to reach out to our agency, reach out to your friends and family. Sometimes just talking it through with someone else, the red flag sort of will pop up on their own. But like Sarah said, we're here to help.
Anyone have any questions before we end the presentation? Any questions in the chat? All right, well, thank you so much for your time and attention. And yeah, hopefully this was informative. And, scams are on the rise, but the resources to fight against them are out there. And, becoming educated, take the information you learned today and don't, please share it with your friends, family, neighbors, loved ones. Because if we can prevent even one person from being scammed, it's worth it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.